Hey everybody, it's me, Undead Viking. I'm here to talk to you about this game. It's called Fleet Commander. Now, Fleet Commander is a game that has existed in a different form prior to this Kickstarter that is going on for this game right now. And this is kind of a combination of, like, they had a Fleet Commander game, then they had an expansion, they had some other things, and so they've all kind of pushed everything together in one awesome, cool package, and that's what this is right here. Fleet Commander, as you can probably guess, is a game of space combat. Space combat! I love space combat games, and I'm a big fan of the games that came before it way back in the day. I'm a big fan of games like Space Empires 4X. I got a couple buddies that are huge into the whole X-Wing thing, and I like playing like that with them because I didn't have to spend all the money on the ships. You know, I played Star Wars Armada a few times. I found it interesting. It just kind of fell a little flat for me a little bit. But you know, this game really intrigued me because of the fact that it was a combination of both very like strategic like decisions, because that with less randomness than I was expecting, and that might not make a lot of sense to you right this moment, but when I show you how to play the game, I hope that comes through. Now, I mean, that isn't to say that it isn't random. It is a chaotic game full of like different choices and things that happen as far as with as you'd expect from a giant game about, you know, giant spaceships, you know, doing battle over a quadrant of interstellar space. But you know, it is a game that has like tons of tough decisions that aren't really evident right away. You know, I love X-Wing. I mean, I love it. But I always feel like I'm playing with toys when I play it. You know, and it's just like, and it always seems like my decisions are kind of made for me. It's like, well, this is what I should do, you know, in that kind of situation. But this game didn't have that for me. It had one of these things like, what should I do in this situation? How am I going to figure out what am I going to do? Where should I move this ship to put myself in the best possible position for this turn or the turn after that? And things like that were going on. So let me tell you exactly how to play the game. I'm going to give you an overview of the rules and kind of show you how the game looks like. And then we'll come back here and I'll tell you more about why I'm digging the heck out of Fleet Commander. All right, cool. Okay, I've gone ahead and set up Fleet Commander, and now this is for a two-player game. Now, mind you, the reason I set up a two-player game is because if you're going to be playing with more than two, you're going to kind of make the battlefield a little bit bigger. And this is my gaming room table, and it's kind of on the smaller side. But I have played this with 4 people, and it is a blast. But I'm just going to show you this just so you can have an idea of how the game is played. All right, so each player will have a side of ships, and the goal is usually predetermined by the scenario. Sometimes it's just obliteration of the other one. Sometimes it'll be some like escort mission or like a capture mission or things like that. For the sake of this, I'm just going to show you the combat, and this is kind of like setting up very basic you know, fighting. These two fleets have met each other in this quadrant of space, and they are going to do battle. Now, before the game begins, each player will then determine what their fleet will be comprised of. Fleets have 4 different types of ships. They have battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and frigates, and that is from largest to smallest. So, for example, this is a frigate. Kind of a bit of a smaller ship, if you will. And this guy over here, this big dreadnoughty looking guy here, is a battleship. And I do like these models a great deal. I like the fact that they are like showing the size and kind of the immensity and the power of them without being like a giant model, if you will. And plus, these kind of, for me, if you're familiar with the battleship Yamamoto or whatever, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but anyway, that anime or whatever, it's kind of in that style, and I kind of enjoy that look or whatever to them. Now, the way it works is you have a certain number of points, and you can definitely fluctuate that as far as how many points you're going to use to create your fleet. The big thing here is that each class of ship has a number dependent upon it. Frigates are 1, destroyers 2, cruisers 3, and battleships 4. And you have to come up with a fleet of those. And then the standard, like, you know, before you actually throw in the cruiser, because the cruiser is actually something that originally was part of the expansion, was a battleship 2 destroyers and 4 cruisers. And so you, in that situation, then you had like 12 total points. And so that's kind of the standard, if you will. So in this case, I've added a cruiser to each fleet. And for that, since you added 3, you have to remove 3 points. And in each case, I've removed a destroyer of 2 points and a frigate of 1 point and put that in there. All right, so just so you can see, like here is a cruiser. And I apologize, this is kind of tough to see here. But each one has a dial. And as they take damage, you will fluctuate the dial down as they take damage. And there are ways to special weapons and everything that will heal some of these things if you're lucky enough to have that. But once, of course, you reach, you know, all the way down to 0, then of course it would be destroyed. Then also on the it has the class number. This is a class 3 ship, and also the damage it does, which is a 3 as well. There's no like random damage in this game. I mean, you have to kind of randomly roll dice to determine if you can attack, but if you can attack it, it is a deterministic amount of damage. So this cruiser, if it succeeded in an attack, it would do 3 points of damage. And then over here on this part, there is the special ability, and the cruisers have the ability that they have their shields are able to protect other people that are in the same sector of space that they're in, and also they can choose to be attacked if they're in the same sector. So like normally if you attack a spot, you say, I'm going to attack that frigate, but if a cruiser's there, the cruiser can say, no, you're going to attack me instead. And because they have more hull points, they can then protect the weaker ships in your group. Quickly, frigates are the little small guys. They have, there's some frigates over here and frigates over there. Frigates have the ability, they actually can dodge attacks if they are lucky enough to have like a special die that allows them to do that. And also they get to move twice with a movement die, as long as when you activate a spot for movement, there's only frigates in that location. So they can move double in comparison to the other ships. Normally a movement only allows you to move 1. Destroyers have the ability to do long-range attacks. Normally if you want to do an attack that's going to do more than one sector of space, you have to use more than 1 die. However, a destroyer, like they have like long-range torpedoes or something, or long-range lasers or whatever, and they can actually, for every attack die, it counts as double. Battleships, basically, the really cool thing about battleships is they are the ones that have the special attack. Plus, they're huge. I mean, they have the full complement of 24 hull points, and they have a special attack. And the special attack is determined by either you can choose at the beginning of the game, and each person can, you know, decide which one they want. There's 9 different options, and each one has a different ability. There's one, like as I said, that allows you to heal. This is a little bomb that you can explode and hurt everything in a certain area of the board. There are things that allow you to teleport through space. There's just like really powerful like missiles that can't be dodged, and nanobotic or attacks like drones that you can sick on other players and attack them. And so your battleship, not only does a 4 damage if it attacks, just because it's massive and has a ton of weapons, but it's going to have that special attack as well. And so they're kind of a big key to your side. Now you don't have to have one. Obviously, when you build your fleet with 12 points, you don't have to keep a battleship. You could definitely go a different route and, you know, try something different. And I've done that, and it's kind of fun having a, you know, that. But I mean, I like having the big battleship though. I like having the big bruiser, if you will. Now at the beginning of the game, like I said, you're going to pick that. So I'll just, you know, randomly drop one of these over here and there, and they go on those little command tokens here, like your command bases. And you'll notice on this command base, I'll show that really quickly to you. On this command base, there are these 4 different other locations here. Those will be spots that you're going to be saving dice on your turn. Now this one over here, the dice can be of any kind over here. Over here, they have to be a special result on the dice to be saved here. And this is actually feeding into your special weapon, as you can see. And then it activates your special weapon when you have 2 dice here. Now you don't have to save dice to do that. If you're lucky enough to get 2 special rolls on your dice when you take your turn, you definitely can use your weapon at that point too. But you know, sometimes usually that's not going to happen. You're going to save a special die from one turn, and then maybe the next turn you'll get one, and then you'll be able to use it at that point. As I said, the other 2 can be any of the dice. Now you might be wondering where the dice come in. I'm going to explain that to you. Just give me a moment, and I'll show you how that works. Lastly, before the game begins, each player has the option, going back and forth, of placing one of these special tiles on the board. When you place a special tile, it's basically placing a certain effect on that particular spot in space, and it's going to affect the rest of the game. As you can probably guess, this is just a giant asteroid field. If you go in here, there's a chance that your ship, depending on the size, will take some damage from the asteroids. This is what's called a gravity flux. When you enter that, you can't stay there. If your ship enters that spot, you have to roll randomly on a movement die, and then depending on what the movement die tells you, then you get kind of pushed out. So it's a way that you can actually move faster across the board, but you might not like the result. And sometimes if you roll the special result on a die, and I'm going to talk about the dice, but that's like a special result on a die, it'll just push you straight back from where you started. So if you entered here, rolled the special result, you just get pushed straight back in that case. Finally, on this one, we have like a gas cloud. Gas clouds are allowed, basically, you can heighten them. You can't, it lessens your weaponry a little bit. Basically, normally when you attack a certain spot, like if you activate, say like there's, like here, this ship right here, and this ship is here, and this ship is here, and this ship is here. Okay, so, and this one attacks in that location. For free, everything in an adjacent spot to this ship gets to attack as well. It's one of the things that's really nice. It's like about grouping your ships around. However, because he's in the gas cloud, he wouldn't be able to do that. But the nice thing is if he gets attacked, he gets a bonus to his defense if he gets attacked in that location. So it's, you know, something to keep track of. And of course, the gas cloud, of course, is reminiscent of Star Trek 2, which, you know, I always like putting that out. Now, the alternative, on the flip side of this one, this is like an anomaly, and when you get to this spot, you have to roll randomly to see if it is a asteroid or a gravity or gas cloud or what have you, or if it's just empty. So you roll randomly with that particular tile. Now, you don't have to put those tiles out. If you as the player doesn't want to put any, you don't have to put any out, and if your opponent doesn't put any out, there would be none on the board, and so there would be 0. But it can have up to 4, obviously, in a 2-player game. Obviously, with more players, there's more going to be out there. So there you go. That's how you set up the game. Now to play it, you know, just quickly, on your turn, what you're going to do is you have 3 sets of dice. You have a green, a red, and a yellow. And these dice are awesome. I love the way these look. When I see them, I think they're like candy. They look like little pieces of gum or something. I love the looks of these. But each one of these dice represents, green is shields, yellow is movement, and red is attacking. And so you pick the 2 dice. You don't have to pick one of each if you don't want to. And you pick and you roll your dice, and then that determines what you're going to do. Now in this situation, I got an attack of 5. You know, like with the middle and the diagonals. Like I see 5, or pre and a dog chow if you see that. And then the same thing with shields, and then the special with my movement. Now on my turn, what I probably would be hoping for, especially in the first turn, is you're going to roll some movement dice more. You could say, I'm going to roll 3 movement dice if you wanted to. I'm going to roll these 3 movement dice, and of course I got 2 specials. And then, so what you do then is then you use the dice to activate certain spots. So you could go here and you could say, I'm going to move this, and depending, because it is like a 4 by like there, then that would allow me to move in that direction. Now, if I had this one, that let me move in any direction, because notice all those spots. And over here, obviously, this is a diagonal movement. So it's very intuitive as far as how like these dice work. As I said, you can use like with the special dice, if you roll those through, what you're probably going to end up doing then is you're going to then take those special dice and you're going to put them on your board like so, and save them for use in a later turn. Now once your turn is done, after you resolve everything, then the other player will go and they'll take 3 dice and what have you. Notice that the dice stay on here on your command bridge right here. So next turn, I might be saying to myself, well, geez, you know, I don't want to have only 1 movement. I want more movement. So you have the option, if you want, to take those dice back. Now notice you can only save up to 2 dice at any given turn. You can't roll all 3 of your dice and say, I don't like these, and put all 3 of them on. You can only save 2. So that's, you know, something to keep in mind as well. If you don't use any dice, you just discard them. But as I said, you can at the end of your turn pull those dice back if you so desire. So for your next turn, you'd have those available to you. Now, as you can probably guess, attack dice work exactly the same way. If you have this one allows you to attack diagonally, this one allows you to attack in the 4 directions, and the big one here allows you to attack in any direction. And shields, an attack coming in from any direction, shields work orthogonally, diagonally, or special. Now, obviously, the special can be used and saved on the board over here. Oh, I should say, so like attacking in 2 directions, or if you want to attack twice. So let's say, this destroyer, not a destroyer, actually. Let me say this battleship is here, and he wants to attack this cruiser, but it's 2-way. I would have to combine 2 dice that allow me to draw a line between this spot and that spot. Now these can be dice that I saved. So let's say I had one of these dice saved. So I had one of those on my board over there, and I rolled an attack die, see what I got, so I would get any direction on that die. So now using this second die, what I could do is I could draw a line. So I can go from here and then another direction here, and then I'd be able to do a long range attack. Now normally what the cool thing is that a destroyer in the same situation would only need that 1 die, remember? Because the destroyers have the ability to move or attack twice. I just pulled this guy off the stand here. That normally doesn't happen. so that's how you do your attacks. Now, when you resolve an attack, so in this situation, like I said, I'm attacking this cruiser. Now, if the player had saved a shield die on the preceding turn, you're going to save your shield dice a lot. He could use that, say, okay, my shields protect me from that particular attack, if he had that. But if his shield dice were like this from a diagonal attack, and this isn't coming in a diagonal way, I wouldn't be able to use that shield die, and I would take the full 4 points of damage from the battleship. Like, as I said, the damage is all deterministic. There's no, random roll, if you will. Now, special dice are not only used for your special weapon. Special dice actually have separate abilities depending upon the color as well. As I mentioned earlier, the special die roll, a yellow die, a movement die, if this is played against an opponent's attack, you can, your damages in this situation aren't avoided if you're if non-frigate. You aren't avoided, but the ships that are attacked in that square are allowed to move to any adjacent square that allows a move. So it can be used, yeah, you take the damage, but then you're allowed to move off that spot. The frigates, if a dodge action is played on a square that only has frigates, then they suffer no damage when they do the dodge. So that's kind of a nice thing as well. The red die, if you have this, and these are things you save and you use on your turn usually. You play this against an opponent's attack, you still take the damage, but the ships that get it on the attack square, they get to carry out 1 attack, like a counter attack, against the ship that attacked them. And you can't do a counter strike against somebody who's a distance away, so you couldn't do it from here. But if the battleship had attacked right next to this, then they'd be able to attack back and do a counter strike in there. So that's always kind of a nice thing to do, is always making sure that your opponent doesn't have a special result as far as the red one, because they'd be able to use that against you. Now, of course, they might be saving it to use their special power, but that could be the case. But you always want to be wary of the fact that they can do a counter strike. It can't do a supported counter strike. So in this situation, like if you had a frigate over here and these 2 attack, you wouldn't be able to add the extra attack as far as the but they also can't be countered. A counter attack cannot be countered with shields or anything like that. So pretty powerful actually if you have that. And then finally, a green die that has a special result if you're not going to use it for your special attack. This is during your turn. You can discard 1 die of your choice from your opponent's command bridge. So you tell, I'm going to use this, it's called a drain, and you tell your opponent, so let's say your opponent over here had, that one saved and this one saved on their board, right? And you'd say, okay, you have to get rid of 1. So then the player would have to take 1 of those dice and remove it from the bridge. Now, that could be done in conjunction with, I don't want him to have this die or whatever. Maybe he doesn't want, he wants to save that one or something. So you can actually make them make a choice that's going to help you determine your turn as far as the die they remove. So if he removes this, you're like, oh good, now I can do that counterattack because he doesn't have that special red die. And that's where like the dice that you're saving really come into handy. But I'll talk more about that in my conclusion here in just a little bit. So that's pretty much the basics of the game. Like I said, there's different campaigns and there's different scenarios that you can undertake to try to to play or whatever. And obviously these like all against all things are fun. I like this because the kind of like smash and grab thing. But I mean, you can have things where like there's a trap, and so like the one player starts off in the middle and one person's on either side, or you have to do a rescue, and all kinds of different things. And I urge you to go ahead and check out the rules and take a look at those different scenarios, because they're all different, challenging, and it keeps the game fresh and keeps the game a lot of fun. Now, one last thing before I go on to my conclusion is that the really nice thing about this game is that you can play the game hidden, if you will, which is kind of a departure from a lot of games that I've played that are about spaceships battling with each other. You kind of always know what you're facing and you know what you have against you. So when you start up the game, you can keep your decisions as far as your fleets secret. You can pick whatever ships you want. You don't have to tell your opponent, and you can use these tokens to represent your ships on the board, and they're just like these little radar ships on one side, and on the other side they'll either have a number, like here is like the number 4 to represent a battleship, or they'll have a decoy, which is this. And so you can move these about the board in a secret movement type of situation, and basically until they're interacted with, until they're attacked, or until they do something to reveal themselves, like making attack themselves, or maybe a frigate moving twice, things like that would reveal, then you don't know what you're up against until you have a situation where they actually, are like making themselves known. And this allows, and I play that way exclusively now. I love setting up a fleet randomly, not randomly, but I love setting up a fleet that my opponent might not be prepared for. It should be mentioned that if you do take a fleet without a battleship and you roll, you can re-roll up to 2 special result dice, just because obviously the special results aren't going to be as helpful if you don't have a battleship. But so you have that option. Also, the thing is that with these the special weapons on the reverse side, they all look the same on the reverse side. And you can divvy these up amongst the players randomly, and then the people look at their options, and then they can take a special weapon of their choice, and then they keep it face down on their board like so. And so until you actually use your special weapon, they have no idea what you have. And so once again, this is one, after you play the game a couple times, you'll know all the different special weapons that are available, you know their powers, but by keeping them hidden and keeping them to each person's self, that's when like the big surprise attack, why is he holding on to his 2 special dice? He's waiting for that special moment, to attack and what have you. So it is a very dicey moment as far as like trying to bluff or out bluff or guess the bluff of your opponent when they're actually picking those particular spots or whatever. So obviously each turn is going to be filled with tough decisions, because the biggest thing is, do I save this die? Do I use it right now? It's like, which dice am I going to use and like maybe not have access to because I'm going to store them away. Sometimes when you desperately need to have like multiple attack dice, you just aren't going to have them because you stored them or whatever for whatever purpose, and they're not going to have the results you want. But I do find that like this is one of those things where every turn is kind of like a puzzle, and you have to kind of figure out what the best possibility, and then you have to roll the dice and kind of let them land as they are. But then you have to use those dice to figure out how to use them in the best possible way at that moment. Before you and set yourself up. If you didn't get exactly what you needed that particular turn, you had to set yourself up for the next turn and put yourself in the best position possible. And so there you go. You just play the game until your determination as far as the battle is over. Like they said, the 2/3 of your battle strength, and then you lose. I kind of like that, because it's like, why should I have to like finally mop up the last 2 frigates that are spinning around and trying to hide, and it's much better It's just, okay, we routed you kind of thing. I like that. But you can play until you destroy everybody if that's what you want. That's totally up to you. So there you go. That is Fleet Commander. Let me tell you exactly what I think about the game in my conclusion, and I'll do that right now. Alright, so there you go. You should have a real good idea of how to play Fleet Commander. And I hope I did, show you how much fun the game actually was. I mean, just the whole process of taking your turns really makes the game a lot of fun for you. And yeah, it is fun to watch you, like, blow up the different ships, but up until, like, when you actually do the attacks, it's like, that isn't... that isn't like the thing where you're like rolling a bucket full of dice and you see them and you're like, yeah, or something like that. No, this is a game of, and I think that's where a lot of people might be steered a little bit wrong. So, when you hear Fleet Commander, you're thinking laser battles in space, which is truthfully what this is. But like I said, this isn't a game of where you're rolling the dice after you say, I'm attacking that sector, or I'm going to try to blow up your battleship. Roll the dice and see if it succeeds. This is a situation where you're rolling the dice, and then you, as the person that's sitting on the other side of the table and you're watching the other player, you see what their dice is. You can probably figure out what their dice can do, and you're kind of maybe hoping that the other player doesn't see it, or they don't see like maybe a weakness that you've given, or put yourself into it as far as a bad play, if you will, or a bad spot. Or if you both realize it's like, oh, if he gets 2 good movement rolls or 2 good attack rolls on this roll, then that's gonna stink. And so then he gets those dice, and you're like, and so he rolls, and then you realize, oh, thank goodness, he's not gonna be able to, get over towards my cruiser that's like, totally available for him to destroy, and things like that. So it's a little bit like kind of like reverse engineered as far as like the results and as far as like the tension moments are, but they are there and they are very existent. The thing is that I always felt like I had the ability to, if I planned well, at least a turn or two in advance, I always felt like I had the ability to, get in front of it, if you will, and like prevent it from happening, or put myself in a position where I could prevent, the destruction of one of my ships, or at least, minimize the amount of damage that I was going to take from any given attack. And the thing is that there's something so perfect about the whole process of saving your dice. There's like, that one reason is good is because it mitigates the fact that if you do get a bad roll, at the very least you can save that die. You can save the dice, and like you can maybe see a use for them a turn from now. And you can even plan that in your head. You can say, okay, well, this movement die isn't going to help me now, but I could probably figure out a way to use it if I can just maybe get a different die next turn. And so you put it in reserve and you wait to use it again. But it's also one of those things where the dice that you're holding, you can kind of, hopefully, like pretend that you have some big master plan. And so it's like, oh yeah, it's exactly what I needed. You can put that in front of you. And now you put that on the other player to sit there and they can say, why does he want that? And then their gears start spinning and things like that. And so this is kind of both a big frontal attack type of game, but this has a lot of cat and mouse going on. Like I said, once I played it with the hidden fleets, I'll never go back to playing it with like fully open unless I play with my daughter. I did play this with my daughter and she had a lot of fun playing with me. But this is one of those games where I'm going to play the hidden fleet variant always. I love the Fog of War. I love being able to bait and switch and like get people to believe, and like getting a battleship, like convincing them that like this one thing off by itself is nothing important, or getting them to even waste an attack on a decoy or things like that to like reveal it. Stuff like that just makes me giddy when I pull that off, and of course makes me curse when somebody pulls it off against me. But that all kind of lends itself towards the story of the game and the fun of the game as well. So, for all those reasons, I really enjoy this game. The rule set is incredibly simple and it's incredibly straightforward. You don't have a million different types of cards and rules that you have to page through to figure out what special power this has or what doesn't. It's all right there for you. You can look it up. It's very easy. And once you play the game a few times, it's all going to be second nature to you. You can set this game up in like 10 minutes and be ready to go. And, it isn't something, once again, where it's like you're digging through, okay, who's going to pilot this ship? Who's going to do this? You don't have to go through your little builds or anything like that. and you get right to the fun. As Scott Nicholson once said to me, I like games that don't take a long time to get me to the fun, and this one doesn't take me a long time to get me to the fun, and it satisfies that space battle urge, that giant laser and rocket battle urge that I have, and and makes for a game that's fun to look at. This is a game that people like when I set it up at my as far as my game group and for our little tiny conventions or at my local game store, people crowded around. They're like, "Oh, what's this?" Like looking at the little ships and checking things out. That was like, it was an enjoyable game to like present as well. So there you go. That is Fleet Commander. If you have any questions about the game, please ask away. I'll answer those to the best of my ability. I guess if you are a fan of like strategic tactical space battle games like this, I think this has enough different from other games that are out there and presents itself in a way that is both fun and exciting, dynamic, and most of all, like, interesting, and keeps you coming back to the table to play it again and again, to try out a different build, try out a different like set of ships, try out a different way to set up the board, things like that, different scenarios, and it's going to continue to be played over and over by you and your gaming group. So there you go. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Like as I said, if you have any questions, ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. And as always, until next time, this is me, the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.